Okay, welcome guys to today's stream. We're going to talk about poker strategy, and now it should be okay with the micro. That was really stupid that I didn't have the micro on. So welcome to today's live stream. I thought that I'm going to give this a go again on YouTube. Otherwise, I'm streaming on twitch.tv/AndreasFroley, but now I'm live here on YouTube also because there's a lot of new subs here on YouTube, and I want to basically show up here so you don't have to make the effort to go to my Twitch and can interact with me a little bit more easily. So what I actually was talking about is that someone asked me on my YouTube channel on one of my study video or on my study video. Okay, he has studied for 1 year and 4 months and a lot, basically. Let me just quickly show this. He says between 4 and 6 hours a day, and he's read a lot of books by Nick Rano, Jonathan Little, watched videos by Doug Polk, etc. And I try to answer down here basically on what I think he should be doing. And one of the issues that I want to stress is quality content. And, even though you don't necessarily need to spend as much money on poker as I have, not at all, I'm not saying that. I think that, knowing what's good quality content is really what a lot of people are missing out there. They cannot really know what quality poker content is because they don't know who knows a lot about poker. And they might just read an easy book of, I don't know. I guess like if I read Daniel Negreanu's book, it's probably pretty easy and doesn't have as many advanced topics in it, for example, compared to a book like No Limit Hold'em for Advanced Players by Matthew Chanda. And just to give you, something on this book, and I'm gonna go back to that page that I've showed just before, and that's about robust. Is that correct? Sorry about that. It's about robust equity and non-robust equity. And basically the difference between robust equity and non-robust is that robust equity doesn't matter what your opponents have. You're always gonna have equity. If you have ace 4 of spades and 10-5 deuce with 2 spades, you have the nut flush draw and the gut shot, and no matter what your opponent is holding, your chances of winning don't go down a lot if your opponent's range becomes stronger. However, when you have the 8-9 of hearts, or the 8-7 of hearts on the Jack 7-5 of hearts, you have a flush draw and a pair. Now, in this example, you have robust equity, and that's the flushes. However, if your opponent's range gets more narrow, he's gonna have higher flush draws, and that means that your flush draw equity on turns and rivers is lowered by your opponent's range becoming narrower and stronger. That means even if you improve, you're not necessarily gonna win in this hand. And the same goes for your paired equity. If you make a 2 pair, well, that can still be beaten by a very narrow range because your opponent could already have a set and it's not clear what you have. When you make trips, that's very robust because trips are always good in that game, and well, it's harder to outdraw them basically. So yeah, he describes it. The most robust one is the flush draw and the runner straight draw. And the middle pair is not so robust as, you're behind the top pair. So you have to look at your equity components in the hand. And this is really how you want to think about poker. You don't want to, stay, and this is, by the way, the book, No Limit Hold'em for Advanced Players. You don't want to stay at the beginner level. If you want to improve at poker, you want to read advanced books and, get deeper into the poker material. And, if these terms here are not very clear to you or somewhat new to you, what is linear, what is condensed and polarized, then you should definitely start reading books like this, because this is the only way where you can, get further, in theory knowledge about, because basically there's nothing else or almost very few people that are gonna give you knowledge like this other than in an advanced books like this, just very condensed. So reading a book that's fundamentally solid is basically the start of all things, that you think about poker on a more advanced level. Then also he basically talks about what the most advanced programs are: Poker Snowy, PL Solver, how we should think about bet sizes, what are mixed strategies. So if that's all new, like getting this book is really mandatory, and that's how you improve, in my opinion. So if you want to shoot me some questions, just go ahead, guys. This is why it's a live stream. I want to make it interactive as well. Giancarlo says, great content. Love the info about when to play the deal and info about rake. Would you consider doing a sit and go MTT? Okay, I've done a cash game challenge and I haven't made it tournament style. I might consider it. I might even mix it at MS. Look, if I cannot make it in the cash game. Hey Joel, how's it going? Yeah, just random words, but it sounds professional. Everything's fine here, and I hope on your end as well. How are you doing? And yeah, I mean, my challenge is now at $110 after 13 days. Obviously not on track. I should be at around $250 to make it. So not really okay with how it's going. So I might mix in some $1 tournaments on stars and just try to build a bankroll like that, and also maybe include some sit and goes. I might actually do that in the next few days also to reach like a broader audience that also is more interested in tournament poker and not just pot Limit Omaha. So yes, John, I might be doing that. But there's a lot of people out there who do those challenges, and I'm sure, you know, you can get something at least when it comes to their bankroll management. And I have also some things on my YouTube channel about my bankroll management that I would suggest. So yeah, get into those great books like No Limit Totem for Advanced Players. He also has a book that's prior to that, which is called, what was it? Matthew Chanda. No Limit Hold'em. Applications of No Limit Hold'em. So if you Google Applications of No Limit Hold'em, that's going to be his first book. It's about 30 euros here on this website, but I think you can get it cheaper. That's also a great book to start learning more about No Limit Hold'em. So if you have any questions, guys, let me know. Then I'm just going to go on until I get like some new question. And what I also suggested the person, what he should be doing is start working with programs. And I'm not saying, hey, you should get into PO Solver, because PO Solver is quite complex and you might need a coach for that. But the minimum you should do is work on an Equilab. Like really understand, okay, how much equity do I have in certain spots? And I basically selected a situation where there's Queen 7 and a 5 on the board on the flop, and the button raised and the big blind called. So that means we have a single raise pot with a queen, a 7 and a 5. So a flush draw is there. And we are now facing a check by the big blind because he checked to the raise, and we have to determine, okay, which hands do we c-bet? Well, if we want to make a strategy without PL Solver, then we're going to have a look at our button raising range, which could look like this. So with removal of a queen 7-5, you can see that we have the combinations over here. By the way, also, if combinations is new to you, you know, read books from Matthew Chanda, then you won't ask yourself how many combinations are out there for different holdings. So you'll see that this is going to be your range. You're going to have, damn it, I cannot show this, 489 combinations on the flop. And then now you have to make a decision, okay, which hands do you want to c-bet and for what sizing and which ones not. So the way I would go about this is just, you know, again, read the books, and then, you know, after reading the books, decide, okay, which hands make sense to c-bet and which hands make sense to check. If you have a queen 7-5, well, if you have, for example, a strong ace high, like ace jack or ace 10, it makes a lot of sense to just check back and take a free card because you get hit an ace on turn and you might be good already against your opponent's range. However, for example, if you have a strong top pair like ace queen, if you have an overpair like kings, it makes a lot of sense to bet. Here's also an advanced concept already for you guys. The pocket pairs 8s through checks are really important on queen 7-5, and then it comes to a thing like efficiency. When you have a hand like pocket jacks on queen 7-5, you actually want to check it a lot of the times or bet a small sizing. Why? Because first of all, you might get check raised, and then second of all, there's not that many overcards that could fall to the pocket jacks. But if you have a hand like pocket 8s, it makes a lot more sense to have a high bet frequency, because the 9, the 10, and the jack as an overcard would all be very bad for pocket 8s. And if he goes check, check on the flop, the turns at 10 and your opponent has 10 jack offsuit, he just overtook your hand strength. If you had bet 10 jacks offsuit would have folded. So you just have to, it comes down to efficiency, which hands are good to bet. And that you only learn by, you know, even thinking about that efficiency concept. And you only can pick up those concepts by reading poker books, by, you know, listening to some of my channel's videos where I talk about these concepts, and then you can just think about poker on a higher level. And, you know, not just make the mistake of randomly c-betting 8s or jacks. If you've never asked yourself, okay, should I c-bet jacks or 8s on this board and why? And if you haven't found answers to that, then this is really the type of work you should be getting into. And if you want to even know it more precisely what you should c-bet, then you can get into a program called PO Solver, where you have even a more detailed answer to this. So here you can say all the hands that you can have on the button after facing a check. And then the question is, okay, you could bet 2/3, half pot, or third pot, and then it gives you a very complex strategy advice. But what you should be doing is here not say, okay, well, I should bet ace-8 offsuit 20% of the time for that sizing, and then no. Because this is too complex. We are human beings. We don't want to try to emulate a solver 100% because that, you know, creates a lot of mistakes in our game if we try to be exactly like a solver. No, we should learn about the concepts. And you can see already what I've talked about before. When we ask the solver, okay, how often should we bet for a bigger sizing with pocket jacks? It says almost never. So betting 2/3 with pocket jacks on queen 7-5 as the button raiser versus a big blind caller is most likely going to be a big mistake, because the solver tells us, okay, if you want to bet small, bet like $2 into $6, okay? Don't bet big, it's just wrong. However, when you have a hand like pocket 8s, like I've talked to you before about that efficiency, the solver tells you, okay, you can bet all the sizings. He prefers also betting small, but he almost very rarely checks. He checks only 26%, whereas with a hand like pocket jacks, he checks a lot more, 75% of the time. So you can see the difference between pocket 8s and pocket jacks already, and how that works in this game, and how a solver can basically show you the big picture. You can also look at other hand types, which are, okay, what happens if I have ace-king on this board? What should I do? Well, you click through that 3 bet size option and you look at the ace-king over here, and you see that also ace-king high prefers a smaller bet sizing and is checking half the time already. Well, for ace-king offsuit, it's also interesting to see, okay, which ace-king do we have? Do we have ace-king with an ace of spades or a king of spades? Or do we have ace-king without a spade? You can see in the right corner down here, obviously I cannot do this now because if I, you can see the corner on the bottom right already, that when you have a spade, it makes a lot more sense to bet. Like the solver tells you, hey, if you have a spade, you should bet more often. And that's what you should understand. If you have ace-king, not every ace-king hand is the same on queen 7-5. If you have a spade, it's much better and it makes a lot more sense to continuation bet. Why is that the case? Well, when you have the ace of spades or the king of spades, your opponent does not have that spade in his hand. He cannot have, because it's just one ace of spades and one king of spades. Therefore, he also is going to check raise less in the terms of the ace of spades. And he's also going to check call less because he has less hands that have the ace of spades and, for example, a 10. Because if he has ace of spades 10 and we bet 2, you can see that he's going to call anyway with ace 10, but he actually even folds some ace 10. You can see that he folds some ace 10 without a spade, but once he has a spade like the ace of spades, he's just always calling, or 98% calling. So you can see that in your opponent's strategy, that will create a difference whether you have the ace of spades or the king of spades, and therefore you want to make a difference between having a spade or not having a spade. So if right now you're just looking down at ace-king and say, well, I have ace-king on queen 7-5 and just don't know what to do, okay, just start c-betting when you have a spade more often and check back more often when you don't have a spade. And you already have improved your poker strategy. then you go do the same for a hand like when it comes to ace jack, it's actually more centered around, just give me a second. It's more centered around having the ace of spades and not so much the jack of spades. And then when you have a hand like ace 8 high, then it gets actually mixed a lot and gets more complicated than that. But for ace king, it's very clear that with the ace of spades, you can also barrel more. When for example, the turn is a spade, you want to, you know, continue betting a lot of the times. So this is what you can get from it. So also what I also want to look at first is, okay, what do we bet for a big sizing? And the first hands that spring to mind are pocket sevens and pocket fives, because pocket sevens and pocket fives is the hands that have almost the highest EV, because you are not blocking top pair. If you have sevens or fives, it's actually much cooler than to have a hand like king queen. First of all, it's a better hand, but also your chance of your opponent having a queen goes up quite a bit by having sevens and fives, and you have a set, you have a very strong hand. That's why pocket sevens and fives are pretty nice. When you have pocket queens, it's also great to bet big, but only because there's a flush draw. Because there's a flush draw on board, your opponent will check raise more often. You can see that when you bet 4, your opponent's supposed to check raise 11% of the time. So you still get a lot of value with the pocket queens here. If the board was queen 7 deuce rainbow, having pocket queens is actually not as great, because if you have queens on queen 7 deuce rainbow, your opponent almost never has top pair, and your opponent, what is he gonna call you with? You wouldn't bet this big on queen 7 deuce rainbow, but on queen 7 5 with 2 spades, it makes a lot more sense to bet big with queens. You can see that also when you look at the checking range, queen 7s and 5s never check back. The best hands on queen 7 5 with 2 spades in a flush draw never check back. Also something you could learn from the solver. So you see that, okay, this program, whereas it costs $500, it can do a lot, and it can show you a lot about poker strategy and how you should be playing. By the way, also at first, obviously you have to know how to set this up. You might need a coach for this in case or buy a course to learn how to use PL Solver and put in these ranges. This is the big blinds out of position range. This is our in position range that you've already seen. You have to put in bet sizes, you have to put in raise sizes, and yeah, you have to put in the starting pot, the board, and the effective stacks, and then you can run it for, you know, maybe 2 minutes, as it's a bit more complicated, and depending on your machine, and then you will see what to do in this spot. So this is one of the things you can do. PL Solver and the Equilab. All right. Then another thing that I basically dropped there, for example, if you're about learning in poker and don't want to invest like $500 in the PL Solver, there's also some quite good investments you can make. For example, if you play Pot Limit Omaha as you're following my channel, make sure to check out the Mastermind course. It's done, my friend Jane Anders here, and he basically offers you for $29 for the first month. You can get into those courses. And as you know, I'm a big advocate of Hold'em Manager 2 database analysis. And you can see this is exactly what's happening here. He's giving you introduction to Hold'em Manager 2 setups. So you can see how he is working with Hold'em Manager 2. And then he shows you different areas of the game in Pot Limit Omaha. You can do exactly the same for Pot Limit Omaha, for No Limit Hold'em. If you're a Hold'em player, you don't care about PLO, I think even then investing $29 into picking up these pieces of content is worth it, because you can just do exactly the same for No Limit Hold'em. Okay, you just take the same approach that he's using here in Pot Limit Omaha and get it to No Limit Hold'em. For example, here he's basically filtering ace high boards and then looking at, okay, what happens if the board comes ace high and he has 3-bet before the flop? What should my strategy be looking like? He has worked a lot of solvers, but the basis of this video is that he goes into Hold'em Manager 2 and sees what he's been doing in the past, and then trying to see whether he is not playing like a computer would do that. You know, whether he's deviating too much from optimal play. So that's really what you can learn in the League Buster. And then also, if you want to just learn more about similarities and dissimilarities in the game, there's the Launchpad. If you're trying to learn more about PLO, you can get a lot of videos that are concept videos about what the differences are in PLO, what you should know about first. So a lot of basic strategy, and also then going directly into advanced concepts in what really changes when you start playing a game like Limit Omaha. Also, when you want to know more about different games, also I have a lot of different types of games on my YouTube channel. For example, when I make those split hold'em videos, don't just think about, oh, it's money grab, etc. Of course, I've used this thumbnail here, but these videos are supposed to be also telling you, okay, just my approach to split pot games. The next video is going to be about free rolling, and it's just a big concept to use in split pot games, not only split hold'em, but maybe someday you end up in a split pot game and you remember my video about what to do in split pot games. So watch the video in mind that you could actually use it for the future in another game. Maybe in 20 years, No Limit Hold'em is not so popular anymore, or some new game comes up, and then you just discover that this information actually does a lot of good for you in the future. So think about that as well a little bit when you're watching that. So if you're watching now, maybe you're doing it on the way, maybe you can type in the chat box, but let me know if you have any questions about what I'm talking about here. I'm just trying to give you some value and how you can improve on poker. These are obviously two big resources that you can use. They're also quite costly. Like Equilab is free, but PO Solver costs $500, $250 for one license, I believe. And this is, I believe, just the best tools. But I also gave you like $29 for this book. Is really underpriced of what it can reveal to you in terms of poker knowledge. I really have no idea what Negrano is talking about, but Daniel Poker. Yeah, I don't have his book, but I am honestly not thinking that I'm gonna miss out on anything. Except for the story. Like I also told, in my answer, told John that, okay, I think it can be worth it to read a book by Negrano, Phil Hellmuth, etc. Like more of the famous people, just to get their story, get that what they were doing. Like I don't want to take anything away from them. It's more about, okay, what you can take from their story. And, you know, it was also a different effort. You didn't have all this knowledge that you have these days from the internet, that you can take your advantage. It was pretty tough probably like 20 years ago or even 15 years ago when there was limited knowledge on the internet to get like the right strategy, because you have to do everything by trial and error. And I'm sure like 99% couldn't do like too much math about it. There's only a few people who could have done the math. Any PLO8 strategy for combined split pot and PLO8, or split pot and PLO? Well, there is, I am now not having access to my server to do solver stuff, but when it comes to PLO8, I'm sure there will be, I mean, I'm thinking about doing something maybe with Jenna at some point that we can do something about PLO8 as well, what strategy we'll be using there, because you can do everything with the solver too. Monker Solver has a PLO8 and NLO8 tool, so you can, you know, analyze that game, especially when it's with 4 cards on a deeper level as well. But when it comes to split pot games, I think you can pick up a lot on my split hold'em videos, because it's the same principles. You're trying to free roll your opponent, or you're trying to force out your opponent. It's always between those two things. Try to get a hand that's very, very nutted. In PLO8, just stick to the ace-deuce hands and to the hands that have an ace, suited ace, and a low card. Because making a flush versus a lower flush, making a nut low versus a second nut low, and making top set versus another set is still the way to go. And because it's a split pot game, because there's low cards, ace deuce is a very, very powerful hand in pot limit Omaha high-low. And therefore you want to stick to those hands that are dominating. Also, position is quite big. Being in position and being able to overbet and seeing the action first from your opponent, whether he's checking or betting himself, is very valuable. And yeah, very crucial to success. And you cannot just, even if you're getting a good price out of position, you can't just defend garbage. And a lot of people in those high-low games, they just defend shit hands. And then maybe on the flop, they can still call against a small c-bet. But then on a turn, you start putting in some big bets, make it 2/3 turn bet, and then overbet the river. And then they're basically screwed because they cannot take the heat anymore because of their average hand strength. That's what I can tell you what PLO8 is all about. And NLO8, PLO8 obviously can only bet the size of the pot. And there sometimes it makes sense to plan the hand on the flop already. If the flop SPR, pot to stack ratio, is 13, you can bet pot on the flop, pot on the turn, and pot on the river, and you get all the money in. So if there's $4 in the pot and you have $52 in your stack, you bet $4 on the flop, $12 on the turn, and then $36 on the river, and that's a $52 betting line that you're choosing. So you have to see that on a flop. That's what you get from PLO. You just learn about the concept of SPR, stack to pot ratio. You look at the flop amount, you look at your stack size, and the magical number is 13. If you have 13 times as much money as in the pot, you're trying to go bet pot, bet pot, bet pot if you want to get all the money in with your holding, if you want to be fully polarized. So that's what I have for you for starters. And otherwise it takes a little bit more visualization and solver work for me to make a video on PLO8. And yeah, I'm thinking about what I can release on that. And if the demand is a lot higher. I know there's some people who want to know more about stud, about PLO8, about different games. But yeah, those videos take a lot of time, and I'm basically, you know, needing people to watch them in order to produce them. And if not many people are interested, then it's quite tough. But you can always ask away in my stream when I'm on Twitch, and you can always ask me obviously here on YouTube if you have like a question in particular that is kind of a reference to a video. All right, so yeah, this is what I have for you guys. Also want to just quickly mention that I not only have a YouTube series, but where is that? So yeah, before I wrap things up, basically I explain you guys also how I work with my students, what I'm doing in the coaching offers. So I think I haven't mentioned that on YouTube enough. So the way I structure things with my students is I have my lessons here in Dropbox, and you can see that I basically try to assess people at first before the coaching. So you get like some value before. I try to get like where people are coming from, and then you basically find this file. Just go to desktop real quickly, where you basically just rate yourself in terms of, okay, how good are you in mathematics? And then you see that diagram down here, and we can basically target weaknesses and also look at strengths and how to make them better. And you can basically go on all these areas, which are also on my YouTube series, Fundamentals to Poker Success. Now, with that out of the way, you can basically go into any poker topic with me on the coachings, and that is, we will review one of your live sessions. So you can record a session. You also get a manual how to record a session in here with OBS and how to do that. Then database analysis is pretty big for me as well. So you have all those filters that I have, some PLO filters, some no limit hold'em filters that you can use and that I will use also to look at your database. And you should always come like with some homework done, because then the efficiency of coaching is much, much higher. Really, if you want to get something out of coaching, you have to be able to put in some work between the coaching lessons, and also come always with tons of questions in how you can improve. Then obviously I provide pre-flop ranges for heads up, MTTs, for 6 max by Educa Poker, or the preflop chart that I use with from the Chain Andes course. It's also provided, so you know what ranges you have to play. Then other topics are c-betting in position. For example, we can have a look at Hold'em. I also use the same example here as a preparation for the coaching. And then when it comes to PLO, I have this file that I'm using to illustrate concepts about c-betting. For example, when you're big blind versus small blind and you're in position 3-better, you can see that I've used here a 66% sizing and a check back, and you can see that which hands are gonna c-bet most often and which hands do wanna check it back. And you can see that aces have a mix, but when you have 2 pair or better, you wanna c-bet all the time in this example. So you can learn something about c-betting. Then there is also the syntax explained, which you can get also in the PowerPoint presentation. So from lesson to lesson, you always get something in between that you can work on so that you come prepared with the right mindset for the coaching and that you know what it's going to be all about. Here you learn basically about syntax in Monk or Solver, and in general with PokerGurus Oracle, how you should, you know, syntax those hands basically and find out more while working with these programs. What else do we have? Well, we have also other topics here, or I have some other topics prepared that I use, which is basically HUD settings, my personal HUD that I'm using at the moment, but I can also obviously provide some other HUDs that I've seen so far. Hey, yo, Profek, what's up? How are you doing today? Then bankroll management, I made a video about it, game selection, tilt, and you get all those short videos introducing you to those topics. I realized like different students have different needs, and when it comes to like a student skill, all you have is like the honesty and like saying what really bothers you. The more honest you're with yourself and where you're struggling with, the more I can obviously help someone. And I can answer a couple of questions, you know, on YouTube, etc. That's no problem. But the big advantage of coaching is that you get really the personalized attention on, you know, your database, your struggles, and, you know, you can always, you know, have a high focus of mind for 1 hour straight on one of your areas or one of your leagues, and how basically we always make a plan together what you can do until the next time to get better, and then, you know, just develop, you know, it's really important that you develop study habits. For example, also what you can do is go into plomatrix.com and check ranges. That's another thing on PLO. So depending on whether you want to do PLO or no-limit hold'em, you just need to develop great habits. Play a certain amount of hands per day, study a certain amount of time per day, and then also taking the right resources. You can waste a lot of time basically as a poker player. It's just so easy. It has happened to me in the past a lot. You know, a lot of those mistakes that I'm talking about, I've made them all, and the coaching is basically there to, make you waste less time. You're not going to waste as much time anymore when you basically know from someone else who has been there what you can avoid. So, okay, that's it for today. I want to thank you guys for watching and tuning in this live stream. I hope you guys enjoyed the short live stream here today. Also, let me know if you want what you would like to see next when I'm doing another one here on YouTube, not just on Twitch. Just wanted to give it a try again and see how YouTube works. I'm just gonna tune in. And yeah. Okay, as I said, thanks for watching and see you guys the next time. And I'm gonna be at Twitch later. If you want to tune in, twitch.tv/AndreasFröhlich. I'm going to be there and stream some more. Thanks for watching.